Right now here at 5, the once self-described toughest sheriff in America is now a criminal himself. Today, a federal judge found former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio guilty of criminal contempt of court. Now, this conviction all stems from Arpaio disobeying a federal judge's order to stop running his immigration patrols and roundups.
CBS 5 Investigates Morgan Lowe has covered accusations against Arpaio for 2 decades. Morgan joins us now in the studio. After years of accusations, a lot of people thought that this day would never come.
Yeah, Chris and Scene, none of those prior accusations of wrongdoing against him stuck. He was the subject of a federal grand jury and FBI investigation for years, and that led nowhere. So he always seemed to be made of Teflon until today. At its heart, it was Sheriff Arpaio's immigration enforcement that led to today's verdict. In 2011, a federal judge ordered the sheriff to stop enforcing immigration law. But MCSO kept at it anyway. 6 months later, he said this on Fox News.
By the way, I'm not stopping anything. I'm going to continue to enforce those state laws, regardless of what the federal government is trying to put pressure on me.
Prosecutors use that clip in their closing arguments. Today's ruling concludes the court finds the defendant willfully violated an order of the court.
This is the right and fair outcome.
Paul Charlton is a former U.S. attorney, and he says Arpaio actually got off easy. He could have faced felony charges instead of a single misdemeanor. Still, Charlton says this verdict is remarkable.
It is unusual, almost unheard of, for the head of a law enforcement agency to have been found to violate a court order and to do so willfully.
All right, so the conviction was today. What happens next?
So the next hearing is set for October 5th, and the sentencing range for a type of crime like this is any from probation all the way up to 6 months in jail.
All right, so we'll see what happens with the sentencing. Let's go over to Scene now for more continuing coverage. Scene?
Yeah, joining us live in studio is James Goodnow. He is with the law firm of Fenimore Craig. James, you've been with us since the verdict came down. Okay, non-lawyer talk. Supporters and opponents of Joe Arpaio would probably say, okay, found guilty of disobeying a judge. I can put my mind around that. But jail time, what are the circumstances? Could an 85-year-old former sheriff be put in jail?
He could be, but it's unlikely to happen here. We know he has a clean rap sheet. As you said, he's 85 years old, so the judge will weigh all of these factors when she issues her sentencing. I think the likelihood of Joe Arpaio being behind bars is slim to none.
Okay, this was a federal court hearing. This was a misdemeanor. Could he appeal it?
He can appeal, and he will appeal it. We know that his lawyers have already said he plans to do that. I expect that to go nowhere, frankly. This case has already gone up to the Ninth Circuit and then the U.S. Supreme Court, and both courts have repudiated Joe Arpaio, saying you don't get a jury trial. He's trumpeting that now, saying he's entitled to one. So I don't think he wins there.
And let's go back to that, because he's been asking for a jury trial since the very beginning. If he was given that jury trial, would this be a completely different day that we'd be talking about, in your opinion, today?
Probably would be, because in the criminal context, all it takes is one. You need to have a unanimous jury. So if you have one Joe Arpaio supporter or someone who's really behind his policies, then he'd get off. That is why he fought so vigorously to have that jury trial.
This isn't over, is it?
It's not. It's going to go on for a long time until this appeal winds up.
All right, Chris, thanks.
Well, for decades, critics have accused Arpaio of wrongdoing, and he survived every accusation and every scandal, that is, until today. Dennis Welch now continues our team coverage with reaction.
Boy, this has been a long time coming.
Lydia Guzman is the longtime opponent of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who filed the original lawsuit that ultimately led to his criminal contempt of court conviction.
We're still not ready to have our victory dance yet, because a lot can happen between now and the day that he's going to be sentenced.
There is real concern among Arpaio's critics that the former lawman will avoid any significant punishment, whether it's through a light sentence, endless court appeals, or help from the president, whom Arpaio campaigned for.
That's one of the things that's in the back of our minds, that President Trump decides that Joe Arpaio is a good old guy and he's going to just let him go.
Sal Reza has battled Arpaio for years and wants nothing less than to see him behind bars.
They should make him wear pink underwear, just like everybody else.
Still, no matter what happens when Arpaio is sentenced in October, all of his critics point to today's ruling as vindication.
The sheriff never knew what justice was, or he wouldn't have done the things he did to violate the court order. Now he knows what justice is.
Now, a quick note on that presidential pardon. Right now, there is no indication that's on the table right now. But even if it were, Arpaio would likely try to overturn this verdict through that appeals process. Because after a lifetime in law enforcement, the last thing the former sheriff really wants right now is a criminal conviction on that record. In the newsroom, Dennis Welch, CBS 5 News.